live at this point. I am not getting any notification on my screen. I've been told by Master Control that we are live, and yes, I'm getting it now. So we are live. As the challenges with being in different locations from the technical people, it is 7 minutes to 6 today on a very difficult day in March 2020. This is the 26th of March 2020, and this year started off with an intent to leave its mark. I am being joined today by three well-known persons. The first to be in contact with us is former senator, well-known businessman, activist. He's chaired state boards and he has a very influential radio show right now, and they deal with issues of public interest. Robert Amar. Good evening, Robert.
Very good evening, Philip.
Robert, you and I were having a very heated discussion off air
I saw
about
this.
some.
I saw the screen. I saw the screen smoking.
Well, I mean, people are going to have opinions on what took place today, and I
Yeah.
want to read something into the public space. When my learned friend, my attorney friend, joins us, hopefully he'll be able to clarify this. Um, Subject to this section, for the purposes of this chapter, the President may from time to time make a proclamation declaring that a state of public emergency exists. This is Section 8.1. Section 2. A proclamation made by the President under subsection 1 shall not be effective unless it contains a declaration that the President is satisfied that a public emergency has arisen as a result of the imminence of a state of war between Trinidad and Tobago and a foreign state. B, that a public emergency has arisen as a result of the occurrence of any earthquake, hurricane, flood, fire, outbreak of pestilence or of infectious disease or other calamity, whether similar to the foregoing or not, or that the action has been taken or is immediately threatened by any person of such a nature and on so extensive a scale as to be likely to endanger the public safety or to deprive the community or any substantial portion of the community of supplies or services essential to life. Within 3 days of the making of the proclamation, the President shall deliver to the Speaker for presentation to the House of Representatives a statement setting out the specific grounds on which the decision to declare the existence of a state of public emergency was based, and a date shall be fixed for a debate on this statement as soon as practicable, but in any event not later than 15 days from the date of proclamation. A proclamation made by the President for the purposes of and in accordance with Section 8 shall, unless previously revoked, remain in force for 15 days. There are a lot more that happens there, Robert, and there's a lot more to that. But the reason I'm reading that is, and I need guidance, because what we were told today by the Prime Minister is that human rights and civil liberties in this country are going to be severely curtailed because of the existence of a virus. But from what I gathered, that was a cabinet decision and not a parliamentary decision, and the President is not involved in the conversation.
Let me just step away. I'm coming back in 1 second. One second.
That's the seriousness of the situation. A lot is happening simultaneously. Those of you watching, if you could, share the video on your groups, your threads. We are waiting to be joined by two other well-known personalities now. And you could tell by the opening conversation that what we are dealing with here is a serious issue of national concern, and that we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, have to understand what's going on here. questions need to be asked. Does the cabinet, and I will ask of the guests as they arrive, does the cabinet have the right? Master Control, we get a feedback loop. I don't know if that mic is open. Does
I'm
the
back.
cabinet have? Robert, the question to you is this, and don't give me the justification. First thing I want to talk about is the lawfulness, and that's why I read the law. Do you think that the question I want to ask you is, when is a state of emergency not a state of emergency?
I mean, I can only tell you as an individual how I feel. I think there are times in a democracy when everything is not written and prescribed in accordance with the constitutionality, although the constitution was developed for the purpose of making sure you don't have these types of sidebars. Trinidad and Tobago, in my personal opinion, does not require to think about a state of emergency, but more requires for us to think of a society that will follow good habits, manners, precedents, knowing fully well if they don't do it, they go die. I think the more important thing right now is for us to understand, do we love our life or do we love our constitution? I love my life. I'm prepared as an individual, sober-minded, to put the constitution on the back burner in light of the issues of Trinidad and Tobago's situation in this pandemic.
So
Because we can, go
will you
ahead.
give way?
Go ahead.
There is a constitution that deals with this. The president is highly paid. It is a simple matter of doing it the right way. I am not saying that your justification and rationalization is wrong. I'm saying that
Right.
there are rules. There are
Right.
rules by which this is done so that we don't end up after this is over with a slew of lawsuits
Right.
and the state having to pay again for questionable arrests and any detention, because if it is not made on a proper law, this is where what you are saying is you're absolutely correct. But if people break this law and go outside and the police detain them, what are they detaining them on?
I totally agree with you that they will have no leg to stand on, especially based on the fact, as you have eloquently put it, that we have legislation that deals with it. We have a constitution that say if you have this kind of pandemic and you want to really do something, bring a state of emergency in place. Now, I'm not telling you that that is the right thing to do. I am not a legal person. I can't bring any kind of legal moral state, but if you use the persuasion of saying that there'll be potential fallout of Trinbagonians as we know them to be, they wanted to take advantage of the system because they could get some free money. I said, well, okay, we have to be protective about that. Now, I don't know whether the Public Order Act and the other one that they spoke about today, which is the one to deal with, Parashram was talking about it today, and he said if they didn't deal with it, the police will deal with them. I don't know if that covers the situation. I can't remember what he called it. I don't know if you recall. He was talking about something that he's guided by the police.
Supplemental law. There was a supplemental law that was just written to shut the bars. I don't know if that's what you're talking about.
No. That's the public order. That's the public order.
Gary Griffith said he was going to rely on the Loitering Act.
No, there was something else Parashram talked about it. I don't recall, Philip. I'm sorry. I should have written it down. It was something I didn't hear before. But Parashram is dependent for all of those people who would potentially break the so-called the curfew, the self-imposed stay home behind your doors. If they did it, the 60-something people that the list came out on the internet just showing up all the names and everything, they said the police have the right to make sure those people do what they're told. I can't remember how he called it. He says he's guided by Dick or something like that, who is the person that is saying that they will follow that procedure and they will enforce that part of the law. Now, if that takes care of it, then there's no need for us to worry about a state of emergency. It is only if that don't take care, you gotta worry about a state of emergency. Because if you have a law that is in place to take care of the perpetrators, we're trying to lock down the people who are supposedly be the ones whom you are afraid they will infringe and not do what they're supposed to do and nasty up the place, so to speak, like our good friend from TV who went out and do the stupidness. I'm saying, okay, I give way.
You see, you're not wrong, eh? But I will stick a pin in the point I raise it, and I want you to continue with yours. I will stick a pin in the point I raise it because we're supposed to be joined by an attorney shortly, and he will guide us. He will know the law you're talking about. But my major concern is now that you have the functionality of the cabinet, the parliament, you have everybody at your disposal. Why are we not doing everything right from the start? Another question. The funding that was made available to the Minister of Health and others, are those funds outside of the budget?
Definitely. They can't be in the budget. There should be a vote. I don't know how it went because I don't even know if they went to parliament with it. I see some discussion with Mala Dukaran, who is talking about the issue of, as she would put it, getting into the heritage and stabilization. I see they're talking some numbers. $11.5 billion or something like that. I don't know the numbers because nobody has really come to the table and advocated what really is taking place. Everything is piecemeal. And that's part of the problem right now in the solidifying of how the country moves forward, as the guy was saying in the clip I played for you, is how we come out of this is what is important. What are we using during this time and the exit of this for our best principles? How are we going to use this as a wake-up call, something you have been talking about for the longest while? What is going to happen with the reliability of accountabilities of the people who are involved now in this hard time? How are we going to recognize that this thing is being done with, should I say, clear glasses? Everything on the table. I'm worried because some of the information they're sharing, it worried me. Because I'm not certain whether it's the truth or not the truth. And if I am like that, imagine the rest of the country.
And that's the point, because you are an informed person. You are in the loop. You are in the national conversation every single day. So you know what is going on. You have a clue. You could imagine the average citizen who don't understand what's going on and listening to these things.
And Philip, that is where the trouble is. I think that is the more important issue rather than talking about state of emergency. Hey, government has made a decision.
Robert, you could turn the volume down by you on your end, Robert. You can turn the volume down by you. Get a little feedback. Sorry,
but you would have to turn up yours because yours are a little too soft.
Okay, well, sorry about that.
Come up again. I could hardly hear you now.
Are you hearing me now?
No.
Because Satish said that if somebody feedback we get this from you.
Yeah, because it should be able to come up from your microphone on his system.
Satish said take off whatever you have in the background. Do you have any plane in the background? We getting that on your mic?
Yeah. No, yeah.
You're not gonna have that. You're gonna have Satish call you. Satish, give me back the screen, call Robert and sort it out with Robert. Yeah, because
I want a Skype call. So yeah, okay, good.
Satish, we're sorting out that loop that we were getting, that feedback loop on Robert's side. So bear with us, please. But as you're hearing the conversation, what we're trying to bring to the national conversation, what we're trying to bring to the public, is that certain circumstances have changed to the point where civil liberties are being seriously curtailed, and I don't know if it's being done lawfully according to the Constitution. Section 9.2 says, Section 10.1, before its expiration, the proclamation may be extended from time to time by resolution supported by a simple majority vote of the House of Representatives. So, however, that no extension exceeds 3 months and the extensions do not in the aggregate exceed 6 months. The proclamation may be further extended from time to time for not more than 3 months at any time by a resolution passed by both Houses of Parliament and supported by the vote of not less than 3/5. And we get into a place where the entire elected Parliament has to have some say in this. We're having technical difficulties. But we're trying to sort it out right now, so we apologize for this. In this chapter, period of public emergency means any period during which Trinidad and Tobago is engaged in any war, or there is enforced a proclamation by the President declaring that a state of public emergency exists, or there is enforced a resolution of both Houses of Parliament supported by the votes of not less than 2/3 of all members of each House declaring that democratic institutions in Trinidad and Tobago are threatened by subversion. And this is the important thing here. This is a democracy. It's also a republic. And a republic is a nation ruled by law. And all of this is the law. Some will argue that we need more adequate law. Fix that. But we can't be operating by VAPs and in a vacuum. Right now, I am concerned that the cabinet is attempting to act outside of it.
The big question you have to address, Philip, is what is more important now? The safety of the country and its people, or the enforcement of the Constitution?
Then I'll ask you this question. If that's your question, right? Ian Allen is one of 20,000 people who are allowed back into this country without isolation, without quarantine, after we knew that such a severe public health emergency existed. We did the wrong thing there. Now we've locked out our people in Barbados and Suriname because we have not yet set up facilities to bring them in and isolate them. Simple isolation facilities, 14 days. That's the incubation. Today I listened to the, what is his designation? Parasham, what is his designation?
Chief Medical Officer.
Chief Medical Officer. I listened to the Chief Medical Officer tap dance today around media questions like he doesn't understand the rules himself.
On that point, I share that he tap dance. I really didn't like that. I thought he would be a more forthright guy. I thought he was going to be more outspoken, positive, non-politicized. Call it as it is. Because he's a doctor. He's not a politician. He had a right to be around the bush.
I think
he should have come straight and say, the man died at 12 o'clock. I was politically influenced not to talk about it until 6 o'clock in the evening. And because nobody knew who died. Up to today, nobody would know because I don't even know the 60-something people that sitting down wherever they're sitting down. And if one of them was to die this evening and they just say we lost a life, who would know out of the 60-something who was lost?
His answers were wrong. His answers were wrong. It was designed It was designed to obfuscate the question. And the question was, because you see, and I'm saying this to you, Robert Amar, you just said that because this is such a severe public health emergency, you will settle for giving up certain rights and privileges, certain liberties. I'm saying to you, this fell in that garden. You can't tell me that you can't tell us that we had a death. This is of urgent national importance. You've shut down this country. You've taken away people's civil liberties over this issue. And now you want to tell us that there are issues about this that we can't know?
And that I disagree with the government on. But I do not disagree with the government's attitude and approach of what they have done so far, with the exception that I thought when the 68 people arrived in the country, they should have carried them all to Cuba one time. There was no need to carry them to Blanchishes. There are two different set of social workers or medical practitioners, one working on this side, one working on that side, having to look after two sets of people when we could bring everybody in one place.
Even better,
That is the one thing I think they did wrong.
why they didn't isolate them on the passenger ship for the 40
No, because
days?
they don't own the passenger ship.
Nobody, listen, there are 1 million passenger ships right now. You can have all of them for $5. The industry
I'm not disputing that, but the point is that
you own a ship that 40 of 68 people are on your ship that have tested positive for COVID-19 coronavirus, and we are asking you to tie up your ship for 14 days. Public health emergency. Commander it. Commander
well,
it in your
it's
waters.
not, again, I'm saying if it was in Trinidad and Tobago waters, Philip, I could understand you saying something like that. It's not in our waters. It's in our jurisdiction that we have no control over.
This is a global thing. But anyway,
I understand. But it is outside the realm of any individual government imposing. It could have been possibly addressed the way you are suggesting. It's like the same thing they've really done with Barbados people. They've really quarantined them in Barbados. The question is if in 14 days after they have quarantined them in Barbados, whether they'll bring them back home. Now, if they bring them back home, they would have worked true to form in my books, because that is what you should do. Provide the sustenance to them for the 14 days outside there. The Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago should have picked up the phone and already called the Prime Minister of Barbados.
Mia Motley, one time.
Should have inquired about the 40 people. Can you tell me how they're doing? Have you had any tests with them? What is the plan for them? What is it going to cost us? Are you going to take the cost as being a pandemic? Can you underwrite it for us this time? Because next time, CARICOM, if something happens, I write here, when you come to Trinidad the last time, I facilitate you. I come the other day by you and we talk about oil in the water and and I sign an agreement with you. You know we good. So what are you doing with my 40 people? I can't bring them home. But I want you to help me. But that is the kind of statesman-like thing that's missing over Keith Rowley. I asked somebody yesterday, where is his compassion? Up to now, he hasn't answered one question about that. He not Stuart Young. Their answer is, we close the border. That ain't good enough. It's good enough for the curtailment of the people, but not good enough for your respect and responsibility to your people. You have to respect them.
There are 30 plus people in Suriname too, you know.
I understand. But like there are people in Australia that has gotten locked down too, Philip, that can't come back to America.
No.
Because
I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying. But this is unprecedented, I gather that. But I want to say to you, by now, we should at least learn how to quarantine people. If you have to bring 60 people back to Trinidad, you wouldn't go and take over Holiday Inn Express, turn that into your quarantine, Bel Air Hotel.
Well, Holiday Inn Express and all them other hotels, as far as I understand, I had a shutdown. There's nobody in them anyhow. But my point to you is, you have to put that in alignment to what happened in Ethiopia. The Italians sent a flight back to Ethiopia with everybody on the flight that was positive. Some of them to the point where they look like they're going to die on the tarmac. That is not what we want in Trinidad and Tobago, because that would be worse for the country. But so the point is that the missing link of Rowley...
Nobody's saying that. The point I'm saying to you, our policy should have been, since the 16th of March, you can't be winging it. When you came with your first press conference and you said that you're in control of this and this is what's going to happen, then we're expecting that you know that the basic steps is quarantine and isolate. If you were Prime Minister and Tobago on the 16th of March had no cases, you wouldn't isolate Tobago?
Oh yeah, definitely. Nobody can go back to Tobago. Tobago would have been one of the pristine places that the world would have here. No cases, no deaths, no COVID, nothing. So at least we can have
Exactly.
a place that we can now, take advantage of as we move forward. Create an
Exactly.
environment for future wealth.
And any Tobagonian who wanted to go back home would have to go into quarantine for the 14-day incubation period and
Totally right.
tested out.
I am not in disagreement with that approach. The problem we have, it seems as if though the government was putting talk and plans in place without having backbone. Because I understand the letters that they signed to say they will quarantine themselves only came out on Friday. After the horse covered the corral. So, there's some letter I understand that every passenger coming in had to sign to say they accept to be quarantined.
But Robert, that is an idiotic policy. Excuse my French. That is an idiotic policy. You were supposed to, if you could close the borders to these people in Suriname and Barbados, you could close the borders to everybody. You could say, okay, one of our critical issues to address, you should have put somebody in charge of quarantine. There should be somebody in charge, like a major general. Give a major general the responsibility to set up quarantine and isolation facilities. Hear me? If you put 1,000 people in one isolation facility that can move around and mingle with each other, at the end of the 14 days, if one of them tests positive, nobody coming out.
I hear in you, but you understand what you're saying is what China did.
But that's the
Remember that
only
what
way.
China did?
But
Yeah,
Robert, that's the
but at
only
this
way.
stage, Philip, at this stage, we can't talk about the history. We are talking about what we're doing as we're moving forward. One of the things that I understand from all of the things that happen is that every country has to find its own way because no two countries are the same. We can only mirror some of the things that are happening in certain parts of the world, but we can't take it like we have done in other institutional things and cut it out and say put it in here. Our culture, our behavior, our attitudes, our whole overall demeanor as a country is totally different. We have so much broad-based ethnicities in the country that we don't have one similarity. So we are in a dangerous position, and therefore the best thing right now is to make sure, and I'm now thinking about what is the positive that we have to come up with. We have 20,000 people that is floating around this country and we really do not know what they're doing. And that is where the trouble is with me.
It's too
Because I
late
go
to
in,
touch.
yeah,
It's too late to
never
touch
too
them.
late,
It's too
Philip.
late.
Never too late. Never too late.
What are you
Never
going to
too
do with
late.
them? Even if
Well,
you
once they are
monitoring them,
but that's
even
the
if you
point. I'm
monitor,
saying if there's no monitoring, okay. But you see, I have a little bit more faith in our people than you have. I mean, I hear you on your Savannah talk the other night when I pick it up when you were saying what you were saying and all the people was passing, and then you say, well, boy, that's why I still here, because of people like that. The point is we have to have faith in the people. We can't let the people believe that they are abandoned. Right now, the way I see it, politicians have abandoned the people. But people like you and I can't abandon them. We must give these people the hope that there is going to be a brighter future. And what are we as outsiders planning to do to make sure that we curtail it, although the horse get out of the corral? Are we going to build an expense?
let me give
We
you
have to
the
build an
hope.
expense.
Let me give you the hope that you're looking for.
Yeah.
528,263 serious cases of COVID-19 have been recorded from the start of this to now.
Right.
123,000 of them are fully recovered.
Right.
24,000 have died.
Right. I
But
understand.
again, but again, 528,000 serious illnesses. But there must be millions in the
That
world
have the problem.
that
Yes.
have
We know
no
that.
symptom, no problem.
Correct.
So
We understand that.
what we know for an absolute certain now is that anybody with a compromised immune system or the very elderly if they get this, will require serious life support saving systems, including ventilation to keep them alive.
I want to tell you worse than that, and you're not facing the reality. 28% of the 70 to 85-year-olds die. Philip, this is not about thinking about machinery to help save you.
Robert,
When you get to a certain point,
those numbers reflect a lack of ventilators.
no, those numbers express that the people got to a stage, and when the disease getting into you, I will send you an MRI that the fella did to show it.
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
You saw it? You saw the MRI when he showed when the okay.
Yes.
You get to a point that no matter what kind of ventilator you have, you can't fix it.
Okay, but
It
Robert,
overwhelms.
and I don't want to say things that will sound like I'm minimizing the seriousness of this. But you're talking about people with compromised immune systems or very elderly people. So, and I'm saying that from the time you know that a flu or a virus exists and that you are asthmatic, when you found out, when the world found out that this was a respiratory disease, anybody with a compromised respiratory system, chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder, anybody who had bronchitis, anybody who had asthma, anybody who had heart disease, all of those people, besides the very elderly, who are the largest cross-section of people who die every year from the flu, should take massive action to protect themselves. I think that we need to.
But
I think we need.
you,
I think we need to get people thinking selfishly. I think we need to
yeah,
get people
okay.
understanding. Wash your hands for you. Sanitize your hands for you and your loved ones. Isolate yourself for you. That I don't think
And
people
that's the
get in the
point.
idea. Yeah.
That you're making the right point, which is what I was saying to you from the beginning. That at this stage, while we may have some infringements in the constitutionality, the more important thing is what do we do to make sure we lose the least amount of lives and make the most amount of people
Yeah, but
re-healthy again.
we're making decisions based on numbers. And we have a number called 65 Trinbagonians with COVID-19 coronavirus. But that's not a true number. We actually have 24 because the 41 that got it on that cruise ship got it in international waters. They may be Trinidad's problem now, but they didn't get it in Trinidad. The ones
No,
that
we know
we
that.
needed, the ones that we are responsible for, and yeah, but these numbers, when you go on World Odometer and people throw the numbers around,
Yeah.
World Odometer not reflecting that 40 of our 65, so making it sound like Trinidad have it bad. But Trinidad
Yeah, well, you see,
imported 40 cases, 41 cases.
we as as a country did not go to World Order Meter and say instead of only have that one cruise ship, they put a second one.
I think
Because in the
so.
World Order Meter,
Trinidad
it
and
only have
Tobago
one
should
cruise
have
ship.
24. I want to write
Correct, on
them
a
and
cruise
tell
ship.
them Trinidad and Tobago should
Yes.
have 24, and then below
On
that,
the cruise,
cruise
that's
ship.
correct. I mean,
Cruise
they
ship.
have the cruise ship
Because
that
that's,
said that is the way to fix it. I mean,
I think
as I
so.
say, if I was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I'll fix it. By the time I
And I deal
work.
with that. Because it's
Yeah,
saying
well, I mean,
65 and it's a wrong number.
well, as a matter of fact, it's 60 something come off the boat. Remember?
I know, but 41 test positive, and I'm saying we literally imported 41 cases.
And
That
that's
I
exactly
will
what
dare.
and that's exactly what China is saying now, you know. Most of their cases now is import. But we have to pay attention to Taiwan. As I tell people, I have learned a lot. This has brought me further along as a leader to try to make sure I understand the role that has to be played, you know. Because we can't fool around without paying attention to best practices, you know. As I
Yeah,
said, we
but
can't
Robert,
take everything piecemeal.
was it lesson of Africa then?
Well, the lessons
Africa
of
have
Africa
no
is,
money. Africa
yeah.
have no money. Africa can't block nobody. And Africa have plenty Chinese people from all over China, Belt and Road. How come Africa in total have the smallest, all the states of Africa? All. How are they so
Small in number.
ridiculously?
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
small.
how?
They're small. They're under 200 in each one of the African states with small debts. I mean, they're on the lower end of the spectrum. I agree. Those are not
Was
answers I could give you. Those are not answers I could give you. The biggest one I
what did
saw
you
the other
say
day was
was
220 something.
what did you say was the lesson of Taiwan? 252 people.
Taiwan was that they went through a process of making sure they did total checks on the people when they entered all the buildings and things like that. They were monitoring them. It's like China, after they came out of this, they developed an app to monitor the people who had it. So they know everywhere those people go right now. And remember, it's plenty, eh? So, again, to come back to your situation where we started the discussion, the country must respect its constitution. But at this stage, I would believe that the safety and health of the nation take precedence over the constitution. And we must make sure that the safety and health of the people come first. We could deal with the constitution after. I don't think any
I
Trinidadian.
want to agree with you. I want to agree with you. But what I don't like is that we're saying that for one thing and not for everything. I said last night that you have us flattening the curve and breaking the transmission, but you send 20,000 ticking time bombs into the communities. We already breaking the transmission and self-isolated for a whole week, and you send 20,000 potential carriers into the communities. How is that us putting the country first?
Well, that I think basically remember that the arrangement was that we would leave the borders open to bring back home Trinbagonians. We stop all the international passengers from coming back here. Only Trinbagonians were permitted to come back, you know.
But that itself is an insane policy, because that doesn't mean that Trinidadians are coming back without the disease. It doesn't mean that they're coming back
And it does,
tested.
and at the same time, it doesn't mean that they came in with it also, because let's be
Ian
realistic.
Allen did. Ian Allen did, and he is
He's
one.
one. Correct. We
How do
have to
you?
use this. I'm not telling you that we don't have 10,000 bad ones, you know. Hear what? I'm not telling you that. But at this stage, we should be thankful, although they screwed up, we should be thankful that we don't have bigger numbers, Philip. I am not
Robert,
saying that.
the largest country in the world is Russia, and Russia
Right,
has the largest uninterrupted border with China.
right.
Russia has 840 cases so far, 3 deaths.
But you see, we don't know where Russia got those cases. Like we could talk about China where they got it. We need to also put eggs with eggs. Now, if Russia have that 840 in one zone, it's okay, but we can't see that in the worldometer. We're just getting grand numbers.
No,
Russia
but
is a big place.
what we know for a fact is Wuhan, China, Huanan seafood market is ground zero. We
Correct.
know that. We know that Italy was the back door from Wuhan. 300,000 migrant workers took it straight to Italy. The mayor of Italy, the mayor of Florence, in his overreaction to the fact that the world was addressing that this was a virus from China, in his politicizing of the matter, created a program called I Am Not a Virus, I Am Human, and encouraged his citizens to hug a Chinese person today.
Ready here. I hear you.
You didn't know that?
But, no, but you see, if you're telling me that, then that
That
is what
is
you call real
why,
stupidness.
that is why I'm telling you, you can't take your eyes off the politicians. Now listen, January 15th, Donald Trump, hi Gary. Gary Aboud is joining us, well-known activist Gary Aboud. Gary, Robert
Hi,
Amar is
Robert.
here with us.
Hey, Gary.
Hi, Robert. Good man. Can you hear
Gary,
me
you're jumping.
Yeah,
You
man, I
all
can hear
hear
you.
you hearing us?
clearly?
You're jumping into a big argument with me and Robert, but welcome to the conversation. We're talking about you will catch up, but we're talking about a lot of what's been going on. And did you listen to any of the press conference today?
Yes.
What's your views on, and the point that I was raising is the suspension of civil liberties as of Sunday without the declaration of a state of emergency. How does the government get to have it both ways? Without the constitutional protection of a declaration of a state of emergency, does the cabinet have the right to restrict human civil liberties?
Well, I heard when you all had started speaking, and Robert's opinion was prefaced by the fact that we're not lawyers. So I know we all have some sense of the law. I'm not competent to comment on that. I have a lot of other comments, but I'm very concerned about the way things are evolving and the sequence of events and the way Trinidad is evolving compared to the way the rest of the world. And I mean, those are the things I prefer to talk about. But,
Jump right in. Go right.
well, I mean, Robert, you might be angry for me to say this, but I left Wuhan on the 19th of January. I was in Wuhan and I returned to Trinidad on the 21st. When I got to New York, I was tested for temperatures. If you go back to January the 19th, you would remember there was very little information out there about how dangerous the thing was. And being that I was in China, there was even less information because information is controlled. What
Yes.
had shocked me then, though, is that by the time I made it into the western seaboard, of California side, coming back into the US and reading everything about it and being tested and the declaration of how we were tested, when I arrived in Trinidad, I sailed in like normal. Nobody asked a single question.
What
So
date was that?
from then until now, we have made, in my public capacity in Fishermen and Friends of the Sea, we've made many statements, and so far the government has taken on board some of them, and some of them they've taken on in some small percentage. But I still have very serious concerns, and I'm just going to put it out to you in a very vague way. The first thing is that we certainly need a social assistance program, but we have none.
Every
And many of the, like in Canada, there's a very developed social service campaign of how things should be handled and treated. And so I join Philip's discontent in that after so many years, after over 100 years of oil and gas extraction, we still bankrupt, where we have to, as a bankrupt nation, go and break our savings. And there are serious concerns about the Heritage and Stabilization Fund because although on the one hand, I think it is for a rainy day, this is all we have. At the end of 100 years of oil, all we have is 6 billion US. It can only cover us for an import cover for a few months. And now we're breaking it. And there are public concerns that the government will misspend it in ways that the public may not agree with, in ways that there may not be sufficient transparency and accountability. And there's a whole entourage of public officers who are who have experience in how to grease the system. And I'm not saying that anyone in particular is. This is the sad history from Johnny O'Halloran and the legacy that the PNM have never relinquished. And now we have the UNC with a whole string of new persons in limousines, and the whole string of it has come and gone. And so we are left with concern about the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. There's an economist who put out a program yesterday that the country has all kinds of IMF and World Bank special funds that we could have drawn down for this emergency funding. The third concern that I have is that the government have all our governments, Robert, Philip, all of them have locked us
Everyone.
out. If we are not part of their party, we are considered to be spat on, and the Prime Minister go back will call you a jackass to your face and disregard you as though you are nobody. And that spirit, especially now in a time of war, a time of national crisis, it's amplified and it serves to discourage and destroy the nation. So at this point, I don't want to bash the Minister of Health and the Prime Minister for what I consider to be serious missteps along the way. But I want to encourage them to do the following things. Robert, I'm a landlord. and it comes a great burden for me to say that I think that rents should be frozen. All rents should be frozen. And many people will be angry with me for saying that, but save and accept for a maintenance cost or in special consideration for companies or persons who cannot afford to bypass that rent and who must show it with some kind of rationale that you may be an old retiree living upstairs and you have a downstairs apartment renting for 1,500 a month and you cannot give it up because you need it. You have a specially gifted child at home that you need to care for, but maybe some percentage of rent should be charged, but we need to close our eyes and defer the collection of rent because people, all the private sector is shutting down. Now, some landlords, I know of one landlord that has already taken in front and said to all of his people, look, just pay me 50%. Some of my members of my team, their landlords who they're renting apartments from have said, okay, just pay 50%. But what if a person cannot afford to pay 50%, like a taxi driver, a doubles vendor, a nuts vendor on the roadside selling nuts, making a couple of $100? We need to have some clear program. Thirdly, I know the banks making 800 to 1.2 billion a year, and God bless them. I happy for all the shareholders at the banks. But all interest on all mortgages and all interest on all loans should be frozen, not deferred. So a
I
person
agree.
who has should have to pay three
No, no,
months
no.
from now in a lump sum.
Gary, let me
Give
just add this to that. Let me just add this to that because you see, who benefits most should also take the same hit, if not a harder hit. The banks are in a position in this country, what you're talking about, the billions that they make, the banks are in a position to defer, not just defer, to say to all of the people, because most of our loans are ridiculous rates of interest and they make a lot of money. They make money on all their fees. Trinidad has the highest spread on foreign exchange sales. They make up 13% on that. The banks could tell every small business person, every they know their tenant, they know their clients, not tenants, they know their clients. They know who's struggling to make ends meet right now. You spoke about people, small business people who are completely wiped out now because of this. Hairdressers, mechanics, business dead, business done, it's over. The bank's supposed to say, for the next 3 months, your loan is paid, not deferred, paid. Absorb that those 3 installments. On a mortgage, Trinidadians pay over 100% of the value of the property in interest.
Robert, I'm losing audio. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Can
I
you
hear
hear
you.
me?
I hear you. Yeah, I hear you.
I'm losing Robert. Is there?
All right here. All right here. You hearing
I
me?
didn't touch anything, but I lost the audio.
Wait, I
I
don't
can
know
still hear you
why.
a little bit. Sat, you there?
But we seem to have a problem with the system, but I don't know what is the problem. I mean, the volume on my side is all the way up.
Okay, I can hear you good.
Satish, okay.
Okay, I can hear you
Satish,
now.
Gary, okay. Yeah,
Okay,
and
so
that's all I want.
Gary,
I want Gary to
I
finish his
think
point.
Philip. Go ahead, Philip.
No, let Gary finish his point.
But as I say, I know that everyone in the society is very anxious to secure their capital base and to earn. And I know human nature is one which is unforgiving in the face of profit. But I don't condone that. I don't condone it. I have a small business, Robert. You know, I closed my business on Tuesday. We made a commitment that when the thing goes local, and now I regret it. I think we should have closed before. It comes with a financial burden
It
because,
does.
yeah, today we paid wages for all our members for the next 3 weeks because we don't want our accounts team to have to come back in to tabulate the salaries and to dispatch it. So we said, you know what, let's do it for 3 weeks. We paid something like 400,000. Whoop's gone. Now, I'm not saying that everyone can afford this, but for those who don't or can't afford it, what system do we have in place? What cushion do we have for legitimate businesses, medium-sized and small-sized businesses? Who can we turn to? Thirdly, When we have to pay VAT, quarterly taxes, NIS, don't we have to bring out our members to come into offices to calculate these things? And who is receiving it? The government has not made any statement. So there's a chaos in our minds because we have these tax obligations that come with penalties, but we must put our people at risk to travel out and drive out and come to offices to tabulate these things. So I want to add two more things. That from the very beginning, before the Carnival Festival, we have thought that there were two challenges involved. Trinidad and Tobago did not yet have the virus. So would we be exaggerative and in a panic mode to defer the carnival, and at what cost to the national economy? Because the country earns a few $100 million from this festival, and it goes around at the grassroots, so everybody gets a little thing. But now the carnival occurred, and the victim who died, God rest his soul, arrived in Trinidad on February the 5th. So now the question arises, is it reasonable to say that the incubation period should only be 2 weeks? Because if a man arrived on February the 5th and died on March the 25th and showed no symptoms when he arrived, and for the whole month of February he was fine, then did we not endanger ourselves? And finally, when the government made a $50 million grant to a hotel in Tobago to upgrade its facilities, I'm so concerned about that because you have a
I'm
tourism
confused
product
about it.
that is failing from every angle of the rating. And now you grant a single facility a 50 million to upgrade. But there are so many small eco and family run bed and breakfast and home businesses. What are the facilities for them? And why has there not been any consultation from the very beginning on all of the aspects? Robert, you are a real diligent citizen. I see you going out there and putting yourself out on the line and taking insults as a representative of a media. And Philip, you day in, day out, struggling and battling with this whole question of citizenship and nationalism and what is the right thing to do as a patriot. But why aren't we allowed an official forum where we could share and discuss things? At a time like now, we're spending a projected $4 or $5 billion for a highway through the Aripo savannas. Robert, if you go to Kumuto, it's only a few hundred people living there. They have no traffic from there going to Grandi. And if you need to go to Grandi, you could go on the Valencia bypass and then straight down the Valencia stretch. You could have widened the Valencia stretch. You're spending hundreds of millions on a network in a very quiet part of the country to put a massive port in Toko that is not even able to handle commercial cargo. There's so many deficiencies in. I'll just give you one example, and I'm saying that this relates to COVID-19. We're building a $2 billion port in Tobago for a vessel that has 500 passenger seats. But the waiting room for boarding only has 320 seats. So where's the thinking? Where's the throughput and the minds? And what I'm saying is that I may not bear a PNM party card, although I have voted for the PNM in my life. I'm 60, Robert. I have voted for the UNC. I've voted for the NAR. I haven't voted yet for the PP. But I'm not belonging to any party but who I believe it could give the country a fresh air. So does that mean that I should be locked out by Philip if he gets in, or locked out by any of the parties who get in, simply because I don't belong to your philosophical party base? We need to have a national consultation, and it should occur right now. The country needs to know. And the final point I'm making, I agree with what Philip has said, and I get Philip's messages on my WhatsApp, and I'm very happy to get them because 90% of the time I would respond and congratulate him because I think he's thinking clear on a lot of issues. We call for the shutdown, for consultation to consider deferral of carnival. We had the carnival and we put ourselves at great risk, and we still don't know. Scientifically, no one can tell us if the virus did not come in at that time. We then called for closing our borders. I love Venezuelans. I employ a whole string of Venezuelans, but I don't think that Trinidad can absorb 10 or 20 Venezuelans, all of whom are trying to get out. So we need to have a ceiling cap of how many comes in to control our borders. I know as a matter of fact that they're coming in right now. And likewise, the plane loads that came in. I have nephews and nieces studying abroad, and they angry with me that I said they should all stay where they are, stay put. They all want to come home. Well, listen, it's too dangerous. It's too dangerous to all the public. People are saying that it's heartless to deny people the right of access. And the UNC are saying that we need to let our citizens come home. I don't think so. I
I
think the
agree with you.
public has a right to be protected. And people are saying how they must protect the identity of the victims. Well, if it was a private disease, if let's say a victim had cancer or a brain tumor or something like that and was treated, I think the family deserves the right to privacy. But in the instance of a pandemic, which is being spread, as I said on one of the chat groups last night, if I am accustomed to going to a particular place, let's say it's a park where I walk every evening, and another person who goes to that park is a carrier and is found to be sick and dies, shouldn't everybody who goes to that park have public knowledge? What is the sacred secrecy of protecting the identity that the Minister of Health should say he would resign his job and be fired
They should.
if he revealed the identity? The public, this is a public interest issue, and the public has a right to know about the whereabouts of every single individual who has contracted this contagious disease.
Well, I want to share from the end of your conversation. Let me start by saying I am one of those that did not agree with the returning of the citizens who are outside in the boat domicile. I said that what should have happened is the government should show some kind of compassion, because we don't know how these people are going to live there for 14 days. And those people should have been provided with some sort of financial wherewithal, so that at least while they're there, they know that everything is good. They could survive. On the second point, where you talk about the social system, that's the worst part of our system right now, which is what I was trying to explain to Philip. That at this stage of the game, while we want to talk about everything, let's talk about how do we solve that problem. Trinidad and Tobago has the worst systems for social services. It's the most corrupt, and it cannot be, shall I say, qualified, quantified, certified, because only has somebody working a deal on the side. So coming out of this, my belief is that if we have to do anything, we have to be able to band together, although I hear the minister talking about some new system they're putting in that they have gotten, that is going to be able to trace everything and have everything in computer form. But that is coming. It's like Star Wars 6. I don't know when it will arrive. Because at the end of the day, elections is coming and they're going to pay no attention to that. They don't care. But we have to start thinking about the next wave. What are the priorities that we are going to place as civil society on our legislators or decision makers that will make Trinidad and Tobago the by far place we would like it to be? And we may not get everything right, but let us at least start to make the things that we believe wrong have some position of priority, so that we don't have to make this statement another time. You see,
Gentlemen,
the weaker people in the country continue to suffer. And that's because we really don't have no policy or system or methodology to deal with them. If we had it, I was surprised when the minister said 80,000 people. I don't think he understood the harm that he did when he set expectations of people at a point of thinking they will get something on short notice. And most of these things now, you have to go up online as if though these people have computers in their home. So I don't know how all these poor people are going to get all the information to the ministry, especially the ones that are unemployed or independent or simple contractors or mechanics or whatever that not in the NIS listing, because they never fix it to start with to make sure that if you're an independent person, you can still go and pay NIS. Up to today, as you say, 100 years later, and we still have nothing right. I don't know where we will start, but I told Philip already, the first thing I would like to see happen in this country is people getting involved in the decision making, and that means to say we have to get them to include referendum as a medium of civil society's involvement in the decision making, especially when it's going to affect our national lives. Right now we have 41 people that go, and if 29 say yes, it passes. And we have no say in it. Unless we don't get in that equation to start to make some contribution and force these people who are in charge in this election year to put something in place to make sure that we have a say, we'll be in trouble.
But Robert, if I could please, and I want to add this to what you just said, that is factual. But there are other things that the existing parties that Gary referred to will not address, including things and very important things, recall legislation, proportional representation. These things are the death to governments who operate on women fancy. We've come to a point where women fancy is dictating public policy. Listen to what CNC3 News was able to say. From midnight on Sunday, March 29, 2020, Trinidad and Tobago will deepen separation by having all non-essential activities forbidden. How do you get that power to say that? I understand. I am putting aside the public health issue because there are ways, there are constitutional safeguards. The army and the police were supposed to be operationalized. That's what a state of emergency is for. We have declared a state of emergency without legally declaring a state of emergency. So the cabinet has taken away the public's civil liberties without recourse. We are now going to have to engage constitutional lawyers to go to the courts and get the courts to give the Prime Minister a stop order. If you want a state of emergency, sir, call it. You cannot take it upon yourself to restrict civil liberties. That's my first point, and I'm going to stand on that point. Secondly, the point that you just raised about public assistance, Gary touched on it. We are very, very quick to pay today. This is what the Prime Minister said. The Prime Minister said they're paying the pharmaceutical companies, the security firms. These are very wealthy companies. There is no simple public assistance grant in place for the average person whose lives you stopped, who have children and other mouths to feed in their homes. What are they to do? You could say, forego the rent, forego the bank loan. That's okay. How are they feeding themselves and their family? These people who live day to day and hand them out. We could have
Philip,
used the same.
just one thing I want you to make a note of, because that is not totally correct what you're saying there. The people who fall under the Public Order Act, those are the first people that will be brought in into the catchment area for receiving government state help.
Someone had to say, Robert, someone had to say, you do not announce this and then figure it out. You're supposed to understand the mechanics of what you are putting in place before you announce it. People went to NIB and were chased away.
I don't dispute that. I agree with you. I said that when I was speaking back to Gary, that our social services system suck. It's just not right. We don't have one.
Robert, Robert, we
What
could
we
use the
have is
same
a
bank
what we have is a patchcote system. We have a
we could use the
political
same banking
system.
system.
We
You
have a
just made
system that a political party will organize and dole out money to its people. We don't have a social services system. Social services is not about politics. It's about people. And unless we don't set the criteria for the people, which is one I think Gary was saying, what is the criteria? How do we set the
correct.
benchmark?
But you are absolutely correct. But right now, we are dealing with a state of emergency without declaring it. And we have people who are going to be hungry in a shut down society. What are they going to do? Nobody's answering that question.
Well, you see, if I give you the answer, you might get vexed. But the answer is people will rebel.
Robert, we have simple systems we can use. People have bank accounts. You just made every barber and Baji and Bodhi farmer go and open a bank account to change the $100 bills. Deposit in everybody's bank account under a certain threshold. If you know people working for less than $60,000 for the year, you're giving them what? $510, $1,500, deposit it straight to their bank account on the
Philip,
28th
Philip,
of the month.
Philip, Philip, I love the idea. So let us together put pen and paper. You know how ideas operate. This is
All
not a
right.
talking show.
But as
This is
Gary
an
said, no, you're
action
correct.
show. I like it. I think
Actually,
we need to write the
absolutely.
minister and copy
You
the
can write
prime
them on
minister and tell them, here what? It can look like only have a system, but everybody in Trinidad, after all they changed the $100 bill, had to have an account. So at this stage of the game, everybody more or less have an account in this country in some bank.
use
So if
the
it's
account.
under any person's account for the last 6 months was under $3,000, put $1,500 in their account for the next 3 months. I talking
Absolutely.
like Gary now. Give them 3 months one time. Don't
But
even
that's
let me get them
exactly
one month. It's a waste of
that's
time.
exactly
$1,500 can't help you at all.
that is how the Canadian country, the Canadian Prime Minister came out and said, we're even going to put things in place for runaways and the homeless. Because you have to. You have to take
Philip,
responsibility for
let me stop talking about that. Let me take action on it. I like the idea.
taking action with that
That's a
after the
good
show. Yeah,
idea.
Gary.
Gary say, and I tell you already, there's not some good ideas. Let me stop
Right, brother.
talking the ideas and let me start
I
planting the
learned, I
ideas.
learned from one of the I learned from one of the best Robert Amar. Gary Abood, you were going to say something.
But I still, you see, the public wants an exciting story. The public wants to be engaged with a stimulating idea of something that they could look forward to. What I'm concerned about right now is what is going to happen in Trinidad and Tobago in the next 3 weeks.
Correct.
And then in the next 3 weeks after that, and the next 3 weeks after that. So when the Prime Minister came out and said they're closing the university for 10 days or 2 weeks, I said, well, what kind of nonsense is that? How could you leave the country open, but you close the university? The students don't have special risk. If you're closing the airport to foreign nationals, is it that
Gary, making
Trinidadian passport holders have some kind of special antibody
immunity.
not to get
Immunity.
nonsense?
Immunity.
And
Yeah.
the government must own up for these blunders. Now, I don't
I
like to
agree.
bash them because they're under pressure. But as I told George Chambers himself, you could win the election if you simply apologize for the evils that have occurred under your watch. Come forward to the public and tell them, look, we made a mistake. John O'Halloran and Mervyn D'Souza and them ran amok and destroyed the country. But I am going to rebuild it. The public would buy into that. But when you have leaders who shouting down at reporters when reporters ask questions, as if the reporters don't have a sense of pride in their own person, and talking down to them and being aggressive. I heard the Prime Minister speak to the reporter who asked about confidentiality. I said, what up? You would like it, right? This kind of rough, bad John
Uh,
way. No, man,
he's
that's
not
not
a
the way to
statesman,
talk to
Gary.
people. These are young people who are asking a question
Robert,
in the public interest.
You can't make excuses and say he's not a statesman. It comes with the job. He is supposed to have
Hey,
a press officer or a communications
can
liaison to tell him, Mr. Prime Minister, you cannot speak to people like that and be the Prime Minister. They would not
Yeah,
accept it.
I
it's
want to
wrong.
agree with you, but you have to also accept the fact that you cannot make a giraffe a racehorse.
Well, let me tell you, I've read his book. The guy is a brilliant fellow. He has good learning. He's come through his career in a brilliant way. He's almost a photographic memory. He's bright, but brightness does not give you the right, Robert, to insult people.
I
So I don't
agree.
care how accomplished, how wealthy, over and above the fact that he blackmailed
The
me
man is
personally, I could accept
arrogant.
all of
The
that.
man
So
is
don't talk down to
arrogant.
a young boy.
The man is arrogant. He doesn't know how to talk to people. He's been getting
Yeah.
away with cussing the opposition leader,
So
but she can't want to kick
so
up
so
Bilal. We can't.
so I carry one flag. He is my prime minister for the duration that he serves in office. I have to respect him and he has to respect me. And at this time, he should be calling together all the best minds. He should call together all the politically ambitious, all the business leaders, and have a conference of public consultations to get the idea from the business sector, from the church, all the multiple sectors of the religious bodies, all the various small businesses, and come up with ideas on a national consensus. They shouldn't be talking down to us. I don't know.
Gary,
I recognize what Philip is saying about the
Gary,
awkwardness of the way the state of emergency.
I have
Sorry,
a citizen
Philip.
of Trinidad. I have a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago who is stranded in Suriname. Would like to give the country his side of the story. Would you give way and listen to him?
Absolutely. But
He doesn't
Suriname
want
was
to give it.
closed.
No, but
Suriname
listen, there are
it
30
closed.
plus Trinidadians that are in limbo in Suriname. They don't know if they're going left or right. He doesn't want to give his name out of fear of victimization. Good day, my friend. You hearing me? Let me just see if I get some more volume on this thing. Sorry
Yeah,
about
put
that,
the
everybody.
amplifier.
Let's try again.
Yeah. Hi, good night.
You all hearing him?
Good.
Hello, good night.
Come backwards from 10 to 1 for me.
Hello, good night.
You hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you perfectly.
Just count backwards from 10 to 1. I want to see if we getting you on the system.
10, 9, 8,
Gary,
7,
Robert, you all good with it? All right, they're good.
6.
We good with that. Give us your information. Give us what's going on.
Okay, what happened is that, well, we are in Suriname. We have been in Suriname since early February. We came to work on the Statsoli turnaround, the shutdown. And we had, beside us, we had other companies that were working, guys from Trinidad that was here. Right? It had guys on the gold mine, it had guys working in other, but most are oil and gas, right? Now what happened is that since this issue, we have come together, we have our own chat and stuff, and we try to keep each other informed on what is going on. Now, I understand the risk involved with this virus, right? But Suriname has locked down from very early and controlled their borders and everything like that. Up to now, Suriname only have eight imported coronavirus
Easy.
cases, right? And Trinidad now has a lot more. Now Suriname sent a plane to Aruba to pick up their citizen, and from Aruba the plane went Trinidad, and the plane left here empty. And we are saying is that even if Trinidad give us a chance to get quarantined anywhere, all we wanted to know is that we are in Trinidad. We are citizens of Trinidad. Now, I know, okay, for Trinidadians to stay put, and anybody could say that while they're home in Trinidad as a Trinidad citizen, we don't have any connection to this country. They have no obligation to treat us as anything else but tourists or people that just out of place. So then I would like to be home. I have my wife, and we have one of our workers, a very young guy. His brother died last year. His mother only had 2 sons, and she is scared to death that her son is outside here when he could have been.
Philip, ask him if he has applied to Trinidad and Tobago to ask the minister for the permission to come back home.
They did. I spoke to one of them. I spoke to a guy Rishi Ramkissoon, he had called me last night on a live video we did last night, and they made every single offer that this guy here could tell you.
We did.
They,
We
they,
did
they,
everything. We went to the consulate. We did every single thing. We tried to get repatriated to Trinidad. We did everything. And then to hear
Can
some nights ago, Stuart Young said that
can
there
you
were only Trinidadians in Suriname. So how could they be so ill-informed about how much citizens of Trinidad and Tobago they have in Suriname when we are begging to come home? We have tickets, we have everything. And Trinidad said that their borders are closed and they refuse to take us. Let us stay put which pathways.
are you quarantined now?
We are not quarantined. We are in perfect health. We are in a just awaiting some sort of answer on whether we could come home.
If you came home, would you be prepared to put yourself into isolation quarantine for the incubation period of 14 days?
Mr. Philip, if they put me in Raymond Yard for 14 days in a cell, I'm still glad to be in Trinidad. I'm still glad that after the 14 days I will be able to see my kids and to see my wife. We don't mind quarantine. All we want to do is to be quarantined in Trinidad. So after quarantine, we could be home.
So you are saying you're there till February. What date in February?
We came here on the 9th of February. Right, on the 9th of February.
And you're there until now, almost the end of March, right? And the plane that came from Suriname, what day did it leave Suriname?
That plane, I really don't have the date right now, but that plane left. That was a few days ago. The plane left from Suriname. They went to Aruba to pick up people from Suriname, and then they was on their way to Trinidad.
And your application to the minister came before that plane left Suriname?
We have been trying before 2 weeks now. We have been trying. Our office in Trinidad has been trying to get us out since this thing started to get really bad. We tried to get out before the Sunday. Everything that we could have done, we did, and information was so slow in coming to us. And all we are now, we are just stranded. Guys are frustrated. We want to come home. We are Trinidadians. Okay. My question, because I don't know, right? What right does the government have? Mr. Stuart Young and the government are citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. What right do they have to keep me as a citizen out of Trinidad and Tobago? What is in legislation stating of the criteria to keep out a citizen of a country out of the country? What it is? So
let me interrupt you and tell you. Robert will say special powers under the existing circumstances, and he would not be wrong to say that. But I want to say this to you, that there are options and there are alternatives, and the fact that we are not exploring those options and alternatives at the government level is being meaningless.
What we need from him, Philip, we need the letters that he sent. Because we can't be talking in isolation of fact. We need the list of people. We need their passport numbers. We need the dates they were there. We need a full dossier. Because the only way to get it with information. We can't resolve it with just hypotheses.
And we agree with that, right? So after this show,
I will take it personally and walk it into the minister's office. I will go as the press officer. I'll put myself at risk to go to the next press and open up the document to the public.
Good. Robert, I spoke to Rishi last night. I told Rishi to get all the documents together. This is a second person I'm speaking to today. I'm telling him the same thing. Get all the information.
We are in the same group and we will get all the information.
We want copies of passports. We want information that he could take into the cabinet press briefing and ask the Prime Minister, what are we doing about our citizens? So get that information to us ASAP.
I will. Thank you very much.
Gary, anything you'd like to say, ask, anything?
Well, for a man with a full stomach, can't understand a man who's hungry. So
Indeed.
I can only sympathize with the homesickness and abandonment that these citizens feel. But I would urge these guys to understand that the public risk is more important than their private sacrifice. When they were in Suriname, the announcement was made that the following night at midnight, the airports would close. And I'm saying squarely to you that whoever their employers are should be held accountable for the well-being of these sons of our soil. And our Prime Minister and our Minister with responsibility for international relations, I forget him, he speaks very highfalutedly. They are the responsible parties, but all over the world, you have citizens that are abandoned. This is not only these guys. I
No.
spoke to my friends in Suriname. Their brother and relatives went to a wedding in Miami, and they got stranded in Miami, and they can't come home. And then they only got a special approval to come home based on the country's ability to accommodate them in a quarantine facility that had to first, people who were staying in the quarantine facility had to expire and leave before these citizens could come in. But what about the risks to the pilots and flight attendants and the cleaners who have to work on those aircraft to bring these citizens home? I sympathize with them, but I think it's important that it's a tough call for the politicians to have to say that, our boys have to stay out. But in the same way we are saying that the airport should have been closed long ago, these citizens who are caught in this fallout, some sympathy needs to be shown to them. But certainly I don't agree with the idea of bringing them home carte blanche. And all those school children and all those citizens who came home, we had no national protocol for what is called quarantine. What the hell is the meaning of this thing? They say quarantine, and people driving all over the country, going shopping, and they're on quarantine. And now too little, too late. You say, I have a friend who's a police officer. They're going out tomorrow to check on
Oh,
people
okay,
who.
but Gary, that's Peter Payne for Paul, and I am reading the quarantine directions that these people were given to sign, and it is a piece of a letter-sized copy paper. Quarantine directions. You have been assessed as a possible risk for the transmission of the novel coronavirus. The Chief Medical Officer of Trinidad and Tobago, who is the quarantine authority, in accordance with the powers vested by the Quarantine Act, Chapter 2805, and regulations made thereunder, specifically Regulations 381B of the Quarantine Regulations and Section 15 of the Quarantine Act Regulations, has directed that you be quarantined in your home for observation for 14 days, and that's written in by pen. 2. You are not allowed to leave your home during this period, and failure to comply with those quarantine directions are liable on conviction to fine or imprisonment. 3. During your quarantine period, you will be contacted daily by a nurse from the surveillance unit of the country medical office of health for your country of residence. 4. The surveillance nurse will interview you to determine the presence of other symptoms and guide you through the process of taking your temperature. 5. If you develop a fever, cough, shortness of breath, or difficulty breathing, you will require hospitalization and must immediately contact the surveillance nurse assigned to you. 6. You are to wear the prescribed personal protective equipment advised by the Port Health Authority. I have read, understood, and am willing to comply with the instructions stated above. Here my question. 20,000 people came in the country. Who making those calls? Who checking on those people to make sure that they're complying with this piece of paper that you're making?
You know the answer to that. That was a big paper. There isn't enough human capital on the ground to deal with those 20,000 people. But guys in Suriname, what I will say is based on their date, Gary, I believe that you guys should have already isolated yourself in Suriname if you all are together. Find a way to keep yourself in one confine so that at least you could self quarantine yourself. So 10, 12,
Indeed.
14, you would be able to get out of there because now we have legitimacy that because you're there since February and we're all to the end of March. 14 days was you could have fixed yourself because once you self quarantine and you're good in Suriname, it's a good enough situation to bring you back to Trinidad. But if
Well,
you're not
Robert,
quarantined,
it gets
then
more
you can't.
complicated, and it gets more complicated than that because Philip just read out a whole string of things that a citizen had to agree with. But on no part of it does it recognize that people don't live alone.
Correct.
Everyone lives with many people in the home, and
I
people are
understand.
coming and going in and out of the home. So
Larry, the whole thing
automatically
was
thing gets out.
complete, a complete disaster. I
Complete
asked a
disaster.
question. If of these 20,000 people, how did they leave the airport and get home?
Exactly. And
They
and
went
did
in public
everybody
transportation and
did
infected
Well,
people
everybody
along the way.
it might
exactly.
not have been
And did,
public transport. It might have been family transport, Philip. I mean, at the end of the day, there are other people at risk.
Listen, I think we lost
well,
this
listen,
guy.
we've
I think we
known there's so many things that we've done wrong. For instance, we have known that the virus can survive airborne if the humidity and the temperature is right. But we don't know. Nobody knows if the temperature in their car, their bus or maxi, or their office or business is right. But if we know that it survives in an air-conditioned environment and spreads, how could malls be left open? How could maxi taxis with 30 passengers and 20 passengers running people shoulder to shoulder in air-conditioned taxis and buses be allowed to operate? Now, for the
But
maxi
Gary,
taxi owner,
I was in Massey grocery store today with a couple hundred other people in a
a couple
closed
hundred
air
other
condition
people, all
in
the
a closed
groceries
air
ram
conditioned
cram
environment.
because the
Exactly.
government, but they go and they take the poor people in the market and make them line up and have to wash hands and go in a regulated way. And it's a great thing to control the crowd in the market. But nobody goes to the market because of the crowd and the jam to get in. But you could go to the supermarket and walk in and go to Price Mart and spend all your money. So what happens? The farmer gets screwed. The vendor who's buying from the farmer gets screwed. And right now, with this state of emergency, what is happening to our farmers? If they aren't allowed to get to their crops, predial larceny, rotting, you have more bankruptcy. What is the social net for farmers who are now being prohibited from accessing their, and where will we get food if farmers can't go to their
Boss,
crops?
these questions that you are asking, the media is supposed to be asking these questions. We are making solutions that are causing more problems. Robert
Well,
Amar, I put to you that the government's handling of COVID-19 coronavirus has made a terrible situation worse.
I am not admitting that it is not worse. I am saying to you, I agree. But I will tell you one thing that is even worse. Everywhere in the world, they have this particular problem, they spray. I have been wondering when they're going to spray in Trinidad and Tobago. Everywhere in the world, I see they spray. Whether it's France, whether it's Spain, whether it's New York, whether it's Korea, they come out and they spray. In Trinidad and Tobago, I have not seen no sprayers. So if you look at the germ, as you say, I mean, the influences of the air, we still not doing anything to sanitize it. And I don't know when we're going to start.
Good night. I am at Mount Hope since 3:45 waiting to have my COVID-19 test done. Four persons, including myself, waiting here 3 hours under a tent on the grass. Sandflies biting us.
Ridiculous. Unacceptable.
So
If the media,
I'm hoping that this program, Philip, would encourage your listeners, and I know you have a large following, to encourage them to speak about the idea of rents. For instance, the government is paying $100 million. How much is it? $1.2 million for number one Alexander Place every month. And now that the government cannot occupy the buildings, there's no business. The
one,
government business
one and
should
three. They
1
also
and
just
3.
they just rented another
Yes.
building, number 3, Alexander, the same family.
Now, if Faris or if a sitting member of cabinet has a mortgage, which I doubt that he's paying on number 3 Alexandra Place, then the bank should not be charging him either. So I'm saying that we need to grind down the expenditure of the state and the expenditure of private citizens and, and the private sector. We need to grind it down, and everyone needs to take a hit, everyone, for the national benefit, and so that our economy does not grind to a halt in such a way that it cannot be kick-started, because that is a major concern, that
Gary,
3 months or 6 months from now, when we come out of this, that we cannot get the economy back up. And it takes us 3 years to start it back to work.
that is
Go
a
ahead.
that's a critical point, that we are creating a much larger disaster facing this country. We are going to plunder the last piece of savings, the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, in a world where economies could collapse. 2 million employees. Listen to this number. 2 million employees of the oil and gas sector could be on the breadline as soon as next week, Monday. Worldwide, we are talking about critical failure on a global level. If we don't safeguard our piece of the pie and make sure there is somewhere, even if it is to turn inwards and run an insular internal economy for a while, keep moving the money around so people could survive. If we, even if it's that, because this is uncharted waters, and I agree with that, and this is an unprecedented situation, and I agree with that. But I also feel that there is enough data and information out there that we shouldn't have to be acting so haphazardly in our decision making.
Yes. But this is a time when all citizens have to come together and embrace each other and forget our differences and forgive the ills that have occurred and the missteps and the bad judgment and get together. I want to say publicly that I am offering myself as a volunteer to Dr. Rowley. I text him, I have him on my phone, that if he needs me for anything, if the government or the country needs, and I'm sure you both feel the same, that we have to get together as one to fight this thing. Because what we are about to experience, and it has not yet begun, is a major national catastrophe. I'm looking at some of the data of what is happening in the outside world. Let me tell you, fellas, what is happening in Spain, in England. England just ordered an emergency order of 10,000 respirators. I spoke to a friend there this morning. She said it's only 10 days ago that they got locked down. Before, the country kept on moving. And now, even though they are locked down, the curve is like this, all the way up, every day. Thousands of new victims every day. Thousands, not hundreds. So, Robert, you and I are over 49, so we need to be very careful. Philip still,
I
but
let him
but
say
but
everything that he's saying. Talk.
when you look at the data for what is happening on the outside world, it is so. Look, I have it here. Look at it here. I'm going to read some of it to you. USA, 83,000 cases. Today, 14,000 new cases.
Wow.
1,200 deaths. UK, today, 2,100 new cases, total 11,006. 578 deaths, that's 4.5%. France, 29,000 cases, 3,900 today, 1,700 deaths. Iran, 30,000 cases, 2,300 new, 2,200 deaths. In other words, mortality is approaching 8 and 7 and 10%, whereas China didn't have that type of mortality. And China, where it
No.
originated, kept the mortality down to 1.5 and 2%. Why aren't we calling on Chinese technology and Chinese assistance? Is
Well,
anyone thinking about that?
it's not
Gary,
Chinese technology Chinese assistance. It's Chinese commitment to solving the problem that is different to Trinidad and Tobago. Chinese look down, they say, Trinidad and Tobago want to go online.
Robert Amar, the world was creating, the American industrial complex was building from scratch an entire battleship a day during World War II. When we didn't have the ability to 3D print, we could have been ramping up production of ventilators. Again, people need to bear in mind that the vast majority of planet Earth will never be at risk to COVID-19. You could be outside there dancing naked in the rain. You could get COVID-19 and you wouldn't even know. The vast majority of people will get this disease and it will do them nothing. It won't even give them a sniffle. But there are a small section of the entire world's population that we have to be mindful of. Those with compromised immune systems and the elderly. Because if you are falling into either of those two situations, you could be decimated by this. But still, even those numbers, those are who tested, all don't die. We need to be able to kill this disease, but we can't kill the economy to kill the disease because the disease will be over and we're back in the Stone Age. Where are we going from there? That's a
Well,
real
Second,
Philip, the
second,
reality
can you
is that
just
there is only one way to contain this particular pandemic: isolation. If we fail to isolate, we will get just as bad as Italy. There is no way to solve the problem. Trinidad and Tobago, with no isolation, could have deaths in the hundreds based on our ratio.
I want to show
Not
hundreds?
you.
but
I
it's the
want to
We
show
will
fact.
you.
be lucky.
This is a
No, I say
lawless, Robert. This is a lawless nation. The government acted ultra outside of the constitution. I am reading the quarantine.
constitution
No, no,
situation
no.
that is
We just
worse than
quoted the Quarantine Act.
already.
The
The
Quarantine
quarantine.
Act.
No, the man was talking about the quarantine act today. That is the
I'm
act he was
reading the
talking about.
Quarantine Act. I'm reading the
And
Quarantine Act to you right now. Hear this.
yeah,
Hear this.
yeah.
They signed a piece of paper that is illegal. Hear this. The minister may, subject to affirmative resolution of Parliament, make regulations as respect the whole or any part of Trinidad and Tobago, including the ports and coastal waters thereof, for preventing danger to public health from ships or aircraft or persons or things therein, arriving at any place, and the spread of infection by any means of any ship or aircraft about to leave any place. But the first line says to you again, the minister may, subject to affirmation resolution of Parliament. This cabinet, this government is operating outside of the law. They were supposed to take this to the Parliament. They've not done it.
I'm on Skype. I'm still on the Skype. All right, okay. So what I'm saying to you, Philip, is let us agree that they have broken the law. The end result is we still have a situation. Fixing the law now will not solve the problem because the problem will still exist although you fix the law. The problem in the country is the population has not followed the rules and regulations, so to speak. They have been very loose. And if we do not stop them from being loose, protect yourself, as you say, become selfish, because at the end of the day, whoever they take, they deserve it. If you're watching the world, if Gary is making such pronounced statements about what is happening and people are there intelligent and looking at all of these things, watching BBC and looking at China Network in the night and seeing that people are dying all over the world, and you Trinidad and Tobago citizens want to play your damn dumb and you're stupid, but then okay, where you get your take. That's the bottom line.
You're absolutely
Sorry,
correct. Robert, you're absolutely correct. That we
and that
all
is
have a do not think for 1 minute that I do not absolutely agree that every single citizen of every country, including Trinidad and Tobago, have a personal responsibility to themselves, to their loved ones, their community, and their country. I absolutely agree with that. But we are making rules that are forgetting the small people on the ground. Good night. Supermarkets are too crowded. This needs to be addressed. I'm a merchandiser and we are expected to be out there every day without anything from our company. The supermarkets are overcrowded and no control is in place. I am a single parent, so I don't have a choice but to come out and work.
I'm hearing you and I agree. And it means to say that maybe you are ultimately right. Maybe the solution will be that the government might have to eventually enforce a state of emergency, which will be the only thing that locks the damn country down. We may end up in a situation that being the only alternative, especially if people don't want to understand. The whole thing, we're so damn lackadaisical in this country that if you don't feel, you wouldn't understand. And maybe we need that kind of, what should I call it, arrogance. Shut it up. Put the police, put the regiment, put everybody outside there and let them learn. Like what I see happening in other parts of the world. The people aren't accepting stupidness outside there. Citizens cannot put people at risk.
Okay, I'm
And
back.
it's the people, citizens putting the people at risk right now.
My major concern, Robert, is that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. This virus has people living in panic and fear. We eviscerating the economy. We're going into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund and looting that. I don't want us to lose the democracy along the way too. I think that we can whistle and walk. It is my firm belief that we can manage this situation. We could put quarantine and isolation facilities in place. We should have declared some sort of war on this. Put actual people in charge who can manage it. As I said to you earlier before Gary joined, there should have been a major general who was given the responsibility just for quarantine facilities. They should have been able to command there and secure quarantine facilities to make sure so that the government says we're bringing in 20,000 people. They're going to be staggered over the next 4 weeks, and these are the numbers. Have facilities in place so that they could house and hold them, so that the medical people could come and test them and declare them fit or sick. We could do these things. There should be somebody in charge of making sure that when the government pronounces that they are putting measures in place, that those measures are in place because people are already hurting. Gary said, and I think that it goes over people's head, those with full bellies shouldn't be making decisions for the hungry. There are taxi drivers who drive somebody else's car for a living. If they don't go out and drive today, they have no money. Yesterday, money done. What are they to do with their families? We, as people of the country and the leadership, Robert, we have to hold the leadership fire for the weak and the voiceless.
I will do whatever I can. As I tell you, I'm going to compromise myself. I'm at that age that I shouldn't. But I think for the country, it's a good thing. So the next post cab, I'll go and I'll make sure I ask 3 very important questions. And then I will not go back again. Because I really don't want to be in the midst of that.
Available to 104.7. Deputize me as a news journalist. Give me a postcard pass. I want to see them if I am sitting down there, because I will ask the questions that the other media don't want to ask.
But that might be a good idea. You have the right age. I don't have a problem in doing that.
I'm loving that you're not noticing the gray hairs. I'm loving that you're not seeing that. That's all right. I'm taking that.
Listen, at the end of the day, those gray hairs are fictitious.
Okay,
This
Dad.
is real.
Listen, this was a really interesting panel. Thank both of you for coming on such short notice. We're going to be doing this daily. We're going to be bringing others together to keep adding their voices. Gary, Robert, you all have iconic status in the country. I say your name. Nobody asks Robert who, Gary who. They know you all the length and breadth of this country. You have a responsibility because, as both of you mentioned at different times, the people are looking for hope and they need to find hope outside of the existing political institutions that have let them down time and again. Gary, closing comment.
Well, I hope your audience embraces the idea that banks should suspend interest on all
Definitely.
loans and all mortgages. Suspend, completely suspend.
It
That
can't be full.
that the government should set up some mechanism that landlords should not defer rent, but cancel rent for a lesser amount at best. That the government should postpone the obligation of the private sector to have to continue to pay any taxes whatsoever at this time until the country can stabilize, to minimize the importance of travel, that there needs to be some accommodation for our local farmers and fishers who can continue to feed the nation to avoid the swelling import bill and the corporate monopoly of the food distribution sector. Our local people have a big part to play in upholding the economy. And I appeal to the Prime Minister to not be so paranoid. If he wants, I will shave my head bald too, just so that we could relate to each other. We need to
All
be
right.
able to communicate.
Tomorrow's episode, the three of us come in ball. We're making a statement.
Yeah, I'm willing to do that and put on a suit, and even to, to favor certain people over. I would even spend $89 million to change the roof of the president's house, just so that we could all unify in this time of great disturbance.
Philip, all I
So
want
I
you to
thank
do
you
is
for the
simply
opportunity, Philip. And,
Robert, just like Gary, wrap it up there, and coming straight to you, Robert. Apology.
and the last thing I wanted to say is that I'm very concerned, based on the public perception, that our politicians are thieves, that they should have access to $6.5 billion liquid US dollars in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. I think the country should demand the utmost transparency as how that money is withdrawn in the first instance and how it's spent in the second instance. Robert, I don't know if you know, but I had fought for the Heritage and Stabilization Fund at a time when it wasn't even considered, when Kwai Tung was the Minister of Finance. At that time, and as I don't know if you know, that Norway's fund is running into trillions. They could
yeah,
pay their
600,
civil service for 35 years.
644 billion US
US
is their,
dollars.
is their
And they
stabilization
have
fund.
and they have less oil and gas than we do, but we have 6
Yep.
billion and we breaking it.
yeah.
So I'm concerned about these things, and I think it's important that programs like this bring these ideas to stimulate the public and to stimulate discussion. I thank you for the privilege and the opportunity, and Robert, I wish you all the best to continue doing your good work.
Gary, I want to thank you. I want to just say to you that first, I want to address the people of Trinidad and Tobago. This is a very strange situation in this country. This is not normal. And as much as the government might not have followed all the intrinsic rules and regulations, it's not in any way stop you from honoring your responsibility as a citizen for the well-being of the people of this country. I appeal to all right-thinking Trinidad and Tobago citizens to do what is right. Quarantine yourself, stay home, stay off the road. Only go and activate when it is ultimately necessary. If not, you are a part of the problem and not a part of the solution.
Indeed, well
On the
said.
second thing, I want to appeal, beg the government, Imbert, and mainly Prime Minister Rowley, stop wasting time. I think there are things you have to do in order to take care of the less vulnerable. If you do not take care of the less vulnerable, the rot of Trinidad and Tobago will fall upon you, and we will have endless issues to deal with in the fallout of this economic difficulty that people have not and will not grow accustomed to in the short space of time. This is what you call an avalanche. And you are responsible for putting the buffer inside of there. Like yesterday, Philip and I are going to do a letter. We're going to send it to you, appealing to you to use the banking system to solve the problem in the initial stage, because I think it's a damn good system. It at least quells the majority of the people. 90% of those people will be taken care of. We'll still have fallout because some people really don't have accounts. People live on cash. Those we can always pick up on the end because they will not be in the system. To the health workers outside there, I say to you, listen, hold strong. Everything ain't right, but if you continue to do the job and try to make sure you understand the people. To hear 3 people sitting down in Mount Hope for 3, 4, 5 hours or whatever time to get swabbed and tested is unacceptable. How can you, in your right sense, operate like that? Parasram, get something done. That is a 10-minute, 5-minute, 15-minute session. Is come inside, chuck it in your nose, push it in your mouth, put it in a bag, lock it up and go. because I don't see us having the nice system with your hand coming through, the nice plastic and you're behind the wall and putting it in your biohazardous bag and all of that. I ain't seen that in Trinidad. So it's not to say that we have any specialties. Finally, the bankers outside here have a damn heart. If you do not take care of the system, you are responsible for the problems that will happen in this country. You will be responsible for the debts and the catastrophe. You're too blasted greedy. And I've told the bankers that already. It was me. That $2.7 billion that Imber talk about, I'd take it away from all you. And I would have used it to take care of the people. That would have been your tax to pay. I wouldn't give it back to you and say I reduced the fund by so much to give you back money to lend. You wouldn't lend the damn money anyhow. You'll keep the damn money in your pocket and give it to your flipping friends. It's time all you understand who is in charge of this country, you know. It's not all you, only just here because we agree to have you all here. Let the people of this country get up against all you. And only you'll see what will happen. All you're playing with fire. Don't light this fire in Trinidad and Tobago, It has 650,000 hungry people outside there right now who really ain't know where the next hot bread coming from. And I am one of them because I understand the difficulty. I have my bills to pay and I have my people to pay. And sometimes I wonder where the hell the money will come from to pay them. It ain't easy. And I don't deal in illegal business. So you'll never find me like some of them other boys outside there. What I have is mine. I work hard for it. And I make sure the people who work for me, I take care of them. I want to finally appeal to the Almighty upstairs. Hey, although we just forget, put in our people. You never could tell it could work. You mightn't believe there is a creator, but I believe he's there. And therefore that means to say all of us got to bond together. This is one time. You're not a Trinidadian or a Tobagonian. You are a Trinbagonian. And we got to put our shoulders to the wheel to go forward. Gary, have a weekend, brother. Philip, thanks for the opportunity. And to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, hear what? You're responsible. Act that way.
Go to fire. I just wanted to add to what Gary said. The population of Norway is 5,515,000 people. So they're a little more than 2.5 times bigger than Trinidad and Tobago. Contrast and compare that their fund, their Heritage and Stabilization Fund, has over $1 trillion in assets. It includes that they own 1.4% of all global stocks and shares, making it the world's largest sovereign wealth fund. Why couldn't Trinidad and Tobago have that as our boast? Norway didn't get spared from coronavirus. They have 3,369 confirmed cases. They had 285 new cases. Sorry, they had how many deaths? And I just lost it on this damn page. They had they have so much information on this page. They had 14 deaths, 285 new cases, 1,300. But they're not touching the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. And the interest, you could imagine the interest that they accumulated on $1 trillion, how much money that is daily that's coming into there. That fund could now practically run their country. And I think, Gary, that was the intention behind the creation of the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, where an investment pool of money that could run the country. I heard Mala Dukaran in a very impassioned speech asking them not to touch it. And she said that the purpose of the heritage section of that fund is so that our generations to come could enjoy some of the wealth that we had during our oil booms. And I think it's laudable. The fact that it is only $70 makes every statement that we want to make about this country, because we had booms that would have made Dubai and Abu Dhabi shame. But it is, as Robert said, yesterday was yesterday. All of our todays seem to be us learning to take some new hit, some new mismanagement, some new failure. As a people, we really do need to pull together to get past all of this. Gary, you're correct. Robert, you're correct. There has to be a tomorrow. There has to be a morning after this. We have to come to the last case and move forward. If they properly quarantine the nation, then for 14 days we can expect to see a spike in new cases. But after that, because for 14 incubation days there have been no new transmissions, after that, we can expect to see a sharp fall off. And that is the reason why we're saying to everybody, obey the plan. Trinbagonians, you all have stepped up. I have watched my country without any assistance from the government, without any real instructions or guidance. Trinbagonians pulled together, business people paying their workers, giving their workers time off, setting up these sanitation sinks. I am seeing sinks everywhere go, big sinks and soap and things for you to be able to wash your hand 5 and 6 times a day. Trinis are, for the most part, doing it. We need everybody to pull together and get on the same page. Guys, we're going to be calling on you all regularly. Trinidadians are going to look for people like you all to add to the conversation and clear through the noise. Yeah? But thanks very much for joining us today. Yeah? And to the
Yeah.
rest of
Thank you,
Trinidad and
Philip.
Tobago, stay safe.
Amen.